how you doing today? It's great to see you.
Yeah, man, great to see you too. Yeah.
Yeah, we were
Um,
so excited to have you on with us because TIFF is always so much fun, and we always get so many cool docs and cool movies coming out of there. But this one is one where you just immediately go, and you answer the question immediately. How in the world did you two get together?
yeah, I mean, you wouldn't think that we would actually. I'm a political junkie, and so I was always interested in political subjects. Adam Kinzinger would never strike me as one, being given that he's a conservative Republican and I'm a far left progressive, but here's a guy who stood up against his party in the wake of Jan 6, and for that he lost his career, he lost lots of friends and lots of family, and it was something that I admired. I was, and of course I had to reconcile that, right, in my
Mhm.
head, that, like someone whose political views I opposed on the one hand, and here was someone who did something admirable in the other. And so it was through that, kind of whatever lens that I thought that there was certainly a movie to be made.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, we tend to villainize these politicians and just kind of think of them, but you see this and you like the guy. You're like, well, I don't know. Are we thinking about this the wrong way sometimes, or just villainizing these people just blanketly?
Yeah, well, it's interesting
Or
because, I started off by, essentially kind of making a profile on courage. And then I quickly realized, really to my own surprise, that the film, became more about how one does, get along and argue and debate, and even engage with people whose political views you oppose. And it's a real challenge. I think it was a challenge for me, because I disagree with him on every political position, basically. Um, but you start to give one of the things I learned is you start to give each other grace. The more we became friends and the more we trusted each other, the more harsh we could be with each other rather than the other way
Mhm.
around. Like I think people start off really harsh with people they don't know, right? Like if you and I don't know you, we
Yeah.
don't, if we started arguing about politics and we disagreed, it might go south very fast, right?
Yeah.
But if we hung out for 6 months, right? And in this case, I was, documenting, his last year in office. So I was following him around making a film. Um, and then as we got to know each other, we trusted that we could argue about things without our relationship falling completely apart,
Hmm.
which was,
And
of
did
course,
it?
after the film.
Yeah. And did it help soften you up when you called Hot Tub Time Machine a cinematic masterpiece?
Yeah, well, I didn't know that well, first of all, I have to say, this is not the first time I've been called on as the filmmaker to tackle crucial questions in American life. Like,
Yeah.
is it possible to time travel in a hot tub? For instance, is a question, right? So The Last Republican really just is a natural progression from that.
Yes.
But I was actually surprised because, I didn't know. Here I was, forging ahead to make, an important and serious political subject. And I actually didn't know he was a fan of Hot Tub Time Machine until we started making the film. And it was one of my first days, shooting. And he, said, I love your movie, Hot Tub Time Machine. And it gave us some real common ground.
Hmm.
Like having a shared sense of humor does help as well, right? Like we had this shared sense of humor that we could fall back on because you know, he loved what is, of course, one of the greatest films of all time. Um,
Yeah.
so
I
yeah.
love it. Well, of course, you brought us High Fidelity, Gross Points. Like people have been looking up to you for years and thinking, see, now this is what I want to do. And they want to make these great films, but it's so much harder than people think. What kind of advice, especially at the film festival, people want to know, like, what kind of advice do you give to people that want to follow in your footsteps?
Wow. I guess maybe the advice I give myself, it's like it's very hard to do anything in this world, like I think there's a sense that being a filmmaker is harder than, say, I don't know, being a carpenter, right?
Hmm.
But you ask a carpenter how to like make precise and complex, structures, right? And so I think you have to really love it, first of all, right? Which I know sounds obvious. I mean, it's kind of all the obvious things. You have to really, really love it, right? And then you have to give yourself, the space to realize that it's difficult and that if you're passionate about something, this is a terrible answer, actually. I'm gonna, you know what, give me 1 second about this, because I really want to answer something, because those are all the things, like be passionate,
That's true, man.
be in love with those things. But if I just to be a little bit more thoughtful about it, I would say while all those things are true, um, after you're done, you know, deciding that you love it, and after you're done having this great passion for it, really in the end, if I'm, you know, if I'm honest with myself about it, I usually just tend to put those out of my head and go to work. I think if
Mhm.
you can engage in the work as much as possible, whatever that means, if you're, I'm a screenwriter as well, of course. So if that means, you know, writing or reading about, or just reading, right? Being engaged in thinking about writing all the time, rather than thinking about whether I will make it as a filmmaker, even rather, you know, even aside from whether I think I have something interesting to say, like even that sometimes comes later. Like,
Yeah.
so I think just like digging in and doing the work every day gives you the confidence that the thing that you love, that you'll find success in the thing you love. So I think that's probably my best advice, is to
Oh, I love that.
get into the work. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, my co-host is Drew Pearson, one of our great Dallas Cowboys, caught the Hail Mary, went in the Hall of Fame, and we're so proud of him. And he wanted me to make sure that I asked you your Hail Mary moment, which is that moment in your life or career where you just had to go for it and it worked out for you.
Wow. Well, first of all, I didn't know he was your partner. That's amazing. Huge fan.
Yeah. Hmm.
Incredible. I would have to say Grosse Pointe Blank, you know, the first movie. You know, we wrote that movie and we had no idea that it would go anywhere, and it was a Hail Mary. Like, you know, I was, you know, young, I was in my 20s, and we literally threw it over the transom into Hollywood, and I was counting the days, like there within a certain period of time, since it was the spring of like 94 or 5 or something. And it was within 4 or 5, you know, weeks, I decided that if nothing happened, I would have to find a different career. Like I was seriously, you know, I'd gone to school, and I was thinking maybe I could, I don't know, take the LSATs, or I was just, you know, starting to just think about other directions that would, you know, really form the, you know, the basis of my whole life. And, and then we just got extremely lucky. Someone was interested in buying it and making it, and it really just changed the course of my whole life, because then I was able to then start a career as a screenwriter. But that was probably the moment, because I really didn't think anything was going to happen with that movie. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. Well, you know, part of it is that success mindset. And we talk about that on the show is, you know, you kind of have to, you know, go for it anyway, because, you know, that's, is there a certain thing that you tell yourself that keeps you on the right path, even when things are difficult? Because, you know, it can be up and down. And, you know, as creative types, we are hard on ourselves.
Yeah, I think yeah, yeah, I keep think it was I was alluding to it before. I try to not think that things are especially hard. You know, like you, as artists and as a filmmaker, you tend to think, because people, you know, because also it's reinforced by society, like, oh, you're an artist, that must be hard, right?
Hmm.
And I don't think it is harder than anything else. I think it's important to remind ourselves that that we as artists do what we do, and it's
Hmm.
hard, and everything that everyone else chooses to do is hard in its own way. Like I can't imagine being like a brain surgeon is very easy, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like let's not be special in that way. Let's like understand that everything that we do is hard, right? Because life is hard. But you know, if we commit to it and we put in the work, then we'll find success in doing it. And of course, you know, you ask me like, what are the things so I do tell myself that every day, so that I don't, you know, fall into despair, and
Yeah.
essentially, you know, to avoid like existential dread on a daily basis. But it tends to work. Yeah.
I love it. Well, there's so much to get out of this movie, and I think depending on, you know, what your views are, you may get something different out of it. But what is the hope that, as a whole, everyone will get out of it and take away and discuss?
Yeah, that we are in, you know, really polarizing times, right?
Hmm.
If we're going to take this seriously, you know, we're going to take the idea of community and our own society seriously. I don't think we've faced this question. I think we've taken for granted the question that we live in a democracy and that we have a country and that everybody's going to figure it out. I think that there is obviously we've come based on the events of Jan 6 and what everyone knows is happening in politics. that we could be at a crisis moment. And I think in this moment, talking to each other is going to be the most important weapon against against things falling apart. I really believe that. And find a person you most disagree with and start talking to that person.
Yeah.
And really listen to that person. And then the other thing I would say that's a kind of a sub part of that, right? The next kind of the deeper cut is you don't have to convince them of anything, and you don't have to bring them on your side. That's also something I learned. Like Adam and I continue to disagree on pretty much everything in terms of our political views. Like I will try and convince him. Like some days I'll try and persuade him to come to my side more than other days. But I know that we fundamentally disagree. So then it's something different. Then it's just continuing to have the conversation because it reinforces that we both believe in the importance of living side by side, and building our communities and having a healthy society, even though we disagree. So we don't have this fight to, finding agreement in all the little places you can is great, but it's also okay to still respect and give grace to the person you don't agree with. And I think that's been lost in our country to a great degree because, as you started off saying, we're turning everyone into villains.
Yeah.
At the moment you turn someone into a villain, you're only trying to destroy them. So there's no nuance there, right? So, whatever. Like, have a sandwich with the villain, see how that goes. Yeah. So I would say that. I would say this movie, if the takeaway idea for this movie for me is for people to be willing to engage in civil discourse, as a way of figuring out how to, make things better for everyone.
Well said. Well, after this, I can't wait to see what you got next for us. What are you working on now?
I just finished a psychological thriller. So
Oh, good.
So yet another genre that everyone will have to endure, me going from one genre to another. But I feel like, I'm sure there's some, progression from Hot Tub Time Machine to a political documentary to a psychological thriller. Next time you speak, I'll try and tie all those things together for you.
Yes.
But yeah, working on that, working on some other things, very, grateful to have, lots of, good projects to work on.
Good. Well, it's an election year, so I think it's going to be, even more poignant now. And I know people are going to love this one. Last thing for Toronto, is there anything you're looking forward to doing there? We're deep in the heart of Texas, just sweating it out. So this sounds great to go to Toronto right now.
Yeah, I love the fall. I mean, I'm from Chicago, and I think the latitude of Toronto is basically the same. So the fall in Toronto is going to be great. So yes, the weather actually weirdly, like, I live in Los Angeles, so the little things are important, like being able to wear a sweater that'll be cool. Yeah, I mean, I haven't experienced the festival world that much in my career, so just being at a festival to me is super exciting. To have a film at a film festival is exciting. That people are embracing the film is exciting. And so I think it's just going to be a great experience. Adam's going to be there.
Yes.
So we'll get to, chop it up together as we walk around the festival and present the film. So, I mean, the whole thing to me is just going to be a joy.
Yeah, that's so much fun. Well, we really, really appreciate your time, the great answers, and the film. It's a really, really cool. We can't wait to tell everybody to check it out. And I look forward to talking to you again sometime soon.
Yeah, man, it was nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
You too. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Okay, bye-bye.